In 2008, a single sentence penned by a federal prosecutor should have altered everything. It said that Jeffrey Epstein had provided information to authorities on unnamed individuals. The records never stated who, they never said why. Welcome to Season 2 for Intersections. Most people know Jeffrey Epstein as a headline or a monster, but when you look at the paper trail, the flight logs, the property transfers, and the court filings, you get a different story. He wasn't just a man, he was a central node, a human bridge between global finance, academia, royalty, and the highest tiers of political power. This season, we're not chasing down rumors, we are chasing facts. Now we're filling in the blanks on a timeline that shouldn't exist, starting with how a man with no documented clients and no formal credentials became the linchpin to the world's elite. Episode 1, Jeffrey Epstein, the central node. There's a moment in the public record that never gets talked about. In 2008, after Epstein signed his controversial plea agreement, federal prosecutors said he had provided information to authorities on unnamed individuals. The papers don't identify who, they don't say why, and they do not tell what leverage Epstein had, or who derived advantage from it. This is the gap in the record where our story begins. Jeffrey Epstein is commonly referred to as a financier and a socialite, and convicted sex offender. But none of these labels account for how he stitched together a network that extended across billionaires, politicians, academics, and royalty. To appreciate what Epstein was, you need to see him not as just one man, but as a hub, as an individual who connected people, money, and influence in ways that are still only partly visible. This episode sets the tone for the entire season. What do his and other records show? His own statements on his power, his methods, and who he has been able to count on. 1. The early financial mystery. Epstein's ascent started in the 1980s when he left Bear Stearns under mysterious circumstances. There's no evidence in public records of a formal finance degree, a standard investment track, or for that matter, a customer file. But he was, said one veteran bond executive who knew Shale. By the early 1990s, however, he owned a private company that purported to handle the money of billionaires. The only definite customer? Leslie Wexner, a connection that would transform Epstein's life, the Wexner connection. 2. Real estate records confirm that Wexner sold a Manhattan penthouse to Epstein for a small fraction of its price. Financial records show that Epstein acquired extensive powers over Wexner's finances, but the terms of their relationship are still vague. This is the first pattern we'll see throughout the season. The sources of Epstein's power were relationships that were lucrative and little explained financially. 3. The social network. Among those that have included invoices are flight logs, visitor logs, and public photographs, which show Epstein's access to politicians, academics, royal family members, high-profile attorneys, global business leaders. But proximity is not proof of wrongdoing. The inquiry is more straightforward. Why were so many powerful people staying in touch with a man whose past was obscure and whose money was hard to follow? 4. From the 2008 agreement, court filings from that time indicate a non-prosecution agreement, immunity to unnamed co-conspirators, a sentence much lighter than federal guidelines. The arrangement was so atypical, a federal judge later declared it was in violation of victims' rights. This is where the inquisitive framing becomes paramount. The files don't explain why Epstein was shown such leniency. They just prove he'd done it, and that multiple agencies let him get away with it. 5. After 2008. Epstein went on to engage in many of his old social circles after he was released. Flight logs and guest lists reveal continued access to the upper crust. Financial reports show that they retained their wealth even though there were no obvious operations. This is the second strong theme. Rare still is for someone with Epstein's charges to remain influential in the way that Epstein was after his conviction. There are a handful of unanswered questions that aren't coming from the shadows. How did Epstein generate and retain his wealth? Why so many influential figures continue to associate with him? What kind of information did he have that made him valuable to authorities? And also, how his network spanned borders, industries, and institutions. These aren't speculative questions. They're simply gaps in the documented timeline. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't merely a man who found himself at the center of a scandal. He was a connector, a man whose relationships, finances, and influence formed a network that outlived him. This season isn't about sensational claims. Instead, it's about what you see when you really look, in the records, the timelines, the contradictions, and how that reveals the way that network operated. The mystery is Jeffrey Epstein is not just about what he did, it's about what the system did to him. The 2008 plea deal, the immunity for unnamed co-conspirators, and the wealth that kept flowing even after a conviction. These aren't just oddities. They are the recorded routines of a group that operated in the shadows of the public record. If Epstein was the node, he was not keeping solitary company. To get a sense of how the web was spun, we need to examine the man largely responsible for managing the connections, the logistics, and the access. So next time we go from the architect to the operator. Episode 2, Ghislaine Maxwell, the facilitator. See full list of evidence and documents at the DOJ website, https://justice.gov/Epstein. Thanks for listening.